Northwest. This is for the good old days. Back when we was going to the Memorial Coliseum, and then they went to the Rose Garden, and then they brought something new in town.
Hello, and welcome back to Sports Talk Mostly Podcast. This is episode 11, and I am so excited for today's interview guest. We have Lyndsey D'Arcangelo later on in the episode as our interview guest, and of course, don't forget to check out her secret segment. That is our new 10 random question additional segment installment that I've added to the show to deepen the interviews just a little bit more for you guys and give a little bit more personal insight to each interview guest. So make sure that you head on over to the Patreon account, subscribe. It's only $10 a month, and you will get access to each of those secret segments, as well as early access to every episode. So couple of plus positives, however you want to say it, to being a part of the secret segment crowd. So I guess I won't waste too much time. We'll get right into the episode. There's a little bit of news in a few different leagues, so we have a little bit more to talk about today than we have in the past couple of episodes, so that's exciting. Not really going to touch on MLB news today just because nothing has really changed. We're still waiting for players to kind of decide who's going to be involved and who's not. Obviously, I'm rocking my Yankees gear today. Yankees will face the Nationals, if I could talk, and that will be the opening series for the Yankees once the season gets restarted. So that's really all I'm going to say on MLB. There's not too much news there. But getting right into NBA. I don't know how long you guys have been around this whole Sports Talk Mostly podcast situation that I've got going on, but I think a lot of you know that Spencer Dinwiddie is my guy. Love the dude. He's a great dude. He's super smart, great personality, and even better heart. And it was with such great misfortune that we learned he will not be joining the Nets in Orlando. Unfortunately, he has tested positive for COVID-19. So, of course, get well soon to Spencer Dinwiddie. He's second on the team in scoring average behind Kyrie. So this is going to be a huge hole for Brooklyn. Obviously, Spencer was having a great year. He changed his number from 11 to 26. Not that that has anything to do with his playing or his skill, but it's been a newsworthy year for Spencer, and I personally am just so bummed that he's not going to be joining Brooklyn in Orlando, so we will have to wait until next season to get some more glimpses of Spencer Dinwiddie. So, like I said, best of luck in recovery to him, and hopefully, this doesn't have too many detrimental long-term effects for him, and just, sending well wishes from Sports Talk Mostly Podcast to Spencer. And also Bradley Beal won't be joining the Washington Wizards. He has chosen to forego rejoining the team because of his shoulder injuries that he has been dealing with. He's the second leading scorer in the league currently, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the lack of Bradley Beal affects the Wizards. Maybe I do want to offend people. I don't know who's listening, but I was going to say I don't want to offend anyone, but I didn't really think that the Wizards were going to do much anyways. I think anything can happen, so that's kind of a judgy statement to make on my behalf. So, sorry if you're a Wizards fan. But I definitely think that Bradley Beal will be a significant missing piece for the Wizards. So, last little piece of NBA news. I'm sure a lot of you guys are curious if I'm going to touch on it or not. And I am. J.R. Smith joins the Lakers. For me, I love J.R. Smith. This is a huge victory for him, getting back into the league. I know a lot of people would have rather seen some other players in his spot, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. Obviously, the big joke that gets made is the LeBron J.R. Smith exchange from playoffs when J.R. Smith didn't know that they were down, and yeah. Anyways, we all know how that ended. If you don't know already, there's a really funny segment with J.R. Smith and Kevin Hart from Kevin Hart's YouTube channel where J.R. Smith addresses that. He pretty much says, like, he didn't realize, like, it's an honest mistake, like, he just did not realize. And personally, I don't think that that mistake reflects on his playing ability. I think that J.R. Smith has insane basketball IQ. He's a great teammate, great passer, and I just think that this can only end up well for the Lakers. So I'll be curious to see how it all shakes out and how he actually fits into the team as far as a contribution role and standpoint. So super excited that JR landed a spot. Definitely going to be interesting and exciting to see how he fits in with the team. So definitely will be sharing some more news as play starts and things get rolling with the NBA. So moving on to NFL. Biggest news that I think everybody's been talking about the last couple of days is Patrick Mahomes and his 10-year contract. It's the only $500 million contract in sports history. He does have a no trade clause, and I think he's guaranteed like $140 million or something like that with an injury. So if something ends up happening to him and he can't play, he's at least guaranteed quite a bit of money. I mean, there's people were saying that he basically signed a baseball contract in football. So huge props to him. Obviously, we know how much Pat has meant to Kansas City, and just the whole community in general has really shown a whole lot of love to him. And this really, I mean, for me, it comes as no surprise. So, best of luck to him. Congratulations to him and his family. And I'm sure we'll be seeing a proposal from him to Brittany sometime within the next calendar year. So definitely mark that little tidbit, because I will be bragging when we finally get the announcement, because that counts as a prediction. On the other side of that coin, on the other side of that league, however you want to say it, we had Cam Newton to the Pats, and I think it's pretty clear my views on the Pats. I am a Patriot hater. But this, I have to admit, this changes things for me. I love Cam Newton. I'm a way bigger Tom Brady hater than I am a Cam Newton hater, and although I was of the crowd that used to refer to him as Scam Newton back when he was at Auburn. Obviously, I am a huge Oregon fan. I will admit I've talked my fair share of trash on Cam, but I'm really excited to see what he does with the Patriots, and I think that this could be a really good road for him to kind of put his injuries behind him, get back healthy, and be with a squad that has some wide receivers that he can actually make some plays with. So really excited to see how that whole NFL scheme kind of plays out as the season starts and things like that. But I did want to include a sport that I don't really talk about too often, but because it is one of the more prominent major leagues, and because summer is the season for this particular sport, I wanted to just talk for a second about MLS. I admittedly just don't know a whole lot about MLS rule structure. I grew up playing soccer, so I know obviously about the game, the pitch, those types of things. I know and I'm familiar with, but just not really in line with how they differ from league to league as far as like Serie A, La Liga, MLS, those types of things. So if you guys are open to giving me any feedback or any kind of direction as far as rules and scenarios go from the different soccer leagues, totally open to having a soccer mentor. But MLS does return on the 8th of July with the MLS is Back tournament. And I personally am excited to see the LA Galaxy face the Portland Timbers, which will happen on July 13th. And that's personally exciting. Obviously, I'm an Oregonian. Portland Timbers have a very, very positive track record the last couple of years in MLS, and they've done very well. And this particular matchup for the Portland Timbers and the LA Galaxy is actually the first time these two teams will face each other in the last calendar year. So it is significant for that reason. Obviously, we know that COVID closures did play a part in that time frame. But this is one of those friendly rivalries, sometimes friendly, but obviously two great squads. I'm super excited that we're going to get some soccer coming back. There's always great action there, always great highlights. So, please join me if you're not an avid soccer fan. I challenge you to kind of widen your sports repertoire and watch some MLS. So, if this is the first time you're kind of hearing a sports podcast touch on MLS, please don't judge me for it. I'm just trying to, like I said, widen the horizon and kind of just open up to a little bit more sports listeners, because I tend to mostly gravitate towards basketball, football, baseball, and those more American sports, so to speak. And I love soccer, so I don't really know why I don't pay more attention to it. So this is my accountability effort to pay a little bit more attention and give a little bit more credit to soccer. So hope you guys are on board that boat, because it's not stopping. So I guess without further ado, as they say, here is your interview with Lyndsey D'Arcangelo. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Alrighty, episode 11. Thank you so much for your time. Obviously, we spent a little bit of time together in the secret segment. So if you guys haven't yet, make sure you catch the secret segment, go subscribe, and you can catch those secret segments with every single episode guest. But now we have Lyndsey D'Arcangelo. She's a contributor with The Athletic, and you do WNBA and Buffalo, correct?
Yep. I started with the Buffalo site, and when they launched the WNBA site last season, they brought me on for that.
Cool. Oh, I don't know how antagonistic this is, by the way, but I wore this just for you.
Yeah, I'm not really.
Uh-oh, we got a spotty connection. Are you there?
I am here.
Okay,
I didn't
cool.
lose you.
Yeah, it froze for a second, so I just make sure. But yeah, originally we were gonna do this interview at the beginning, before all the COVID stuff started happening and all of that. So I guess just to kind of be real and stay up with the times, what kind of changes have COVID closures brought for you, and how have you adjusted to all those things? I mean, I know it's kind of been a crazy ride for everybody. So
Yeah, it's a lot, and I think everybody who works in the sports media industry has been affected in some way, shape, or form. So with the stoppage of sports, my work for the Athletic Buffalo was put on hold, and then I did a couple things for the WNBA site, but then that was put on hold for all of us, all of the writers for that. Which in the end for me, because my daughter is 8 years old and I had to homeschool her. So it gave me and my wife the opportunity to be able to do that. So since I wasn't writing, I became a teacher, which had its ups and downs. But my kiddo was pretty awesome, and she did her best through it, and we got through it. So, but that was different. It was different waking up every day and then kind of going over her day and her assignments first and foremost, and sort of side paying attention to what's going on in the sports world and things. And then I'm working on a book about the National Women's Football League from the 1970s, and that our first manuscript was due the first week of May, and because of COVID, that got pushed back to September because my co-writer and I both have kids, so we were both dealing with homeschooling and all that. So
a little hard to write all of a sudden.
Yeah, when you don't have time, and it's not like you can call a babysitter because nobody was seeing anybody. Like everybody was locked down. So it's been an interesting couple of months. It's been strange. I haven't really written anything and any articles in a while, which is weird. It's almost like, did I forget how? Like, what's that gonna be like when I next picture? But
I'm sure it's like riding a bike, as they say. I feel like that expression is a little bit overused sometimes, but I feel like it applies.
But when you go from like churning out articles, a couple times a week, and really putting your all, and that's all you're doing, to nothing, it's so strange. It's just flips your whole world around. So I've been feeling like useless almost, like.
Have you done any like personal writing or any like articles that you're gonna keep on hand or anything like that, or have you just been totally hands off about it?
I've been totally hands off. I do write fiction, and I have some fiction books that have been published, and I was dabbling in some manuscripts that I have that I've done nothing with at the beginning of all this. I was starting to write some things, but then I just kind of lost my oomph altogether for writing anything. It just was going with the flow. So it's been kind of hands off. But my daughter starts camp. They're actually doing a camp in Buffalo that she goes to. It's not as full as it normally is, and there's all these rules in place for social distancing. But so I'm going to have time again to start working to get back to the book. So that's my focus.
Well, that's good. That's exciting. So a little bit more like career currently based, if you will, tell us a little bit how you came to your current endeavor as a contributor with The Athletic. Obviously, you spoke on that a little bit at the beginning, but what led you to that originally as far as even the Buffalo side of things came?
Yeah, so I've been writing for a long time. I didn't join Twitter until 2015. Probably should have done it much sooner, but I was writing for a lot of print publications and just kind of more local. Like national was print stuff, and then there was local with the Buffalo News. I would write for them now and again, and just freelancing. And then once I joined Twitter, I started getting in contact and networking with more prominent people in the Buffalo area, more prominent sports writers, and just on a national level. And I started writing for Vice Sports and different publications, ESPNW. For and some gay and lesbian sites like NBC, NBC Out, and things of that nature. And then I just did that for like 3 years, freelancing, just pitching anywhere I could, any store I thought would fit. But I started doing more sports stuff because I really enjoyed it. I was all over the place before I really got into the sports side of things. And one of the guys that I had met, his name is Tim Graham. He's written for ESPN for a while, and then he was with the Buffalo News, and now he's with the Athletic Buffalo. But we became friends, and he started having me on his radio show.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I was doing that with him and just getting more exposure. And when the Buffalo site for the Athletic started, it was, I'm going to say 2017. The following year, 2018, they were expanding. They wanted to add a contributor and then another full-time person to cover the Sabres. And Tim gave him a name.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, he's just amazing as far as just championing me and my career. So I had a phone call with the national content director, and they said, we want to have you on, and wrote for them for a year, and then the WNBA site happened. They wanted me to do that, so I've been with the like 2 years now. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, like you said, you've written a lot of things in a lot of different genres up until then. One of the things that caught my eye, in 2008, you won the Golden Crown Literary Society Award, and that's important because that society increases the visibility of lesbian-themed literature. And you won that for your debut book, The Trouble with Emily Dickinson. What does winning that award, like, how did that shape your work? What did that mean for your work at that time? And did it change your career? Did it add to your career? And how so?
I was surprised, to be honest, like really surprised. I had written fiction before, but had never gotten anything published. And at that time, I was with a really, really small publisher, and it kind of didn't end well. Like, the production of the book, I thought was, the first edition was horrible. This is when you throw yourself out there, and then you learn lessons after the fact of what you could have done differently. But yeah, they submitted it, the book, to the Golden Crown Literary Society, which does a lot in the gay and lesbian publishing world. It's kind of like a big to do. And when I found out I won, I was like, well, that's amazing. And I think it cemented the fact that I always knew I was a good writer, and then whether it was fiction, nonfiction, whatever, but to write a whole book and have that be accepted and celebrated was pretty cool. And it made me want to write.
Yeah, definitely. When I saw that, and not only I stopped obviously to read a little bit of a summary on the book, which I thought the story in and of itself was really cool and something that can be really eye-opening to people who are not familiar with lesbian relationships and finding yourself amongst, a lesbian relationship. But like you said, once I discovered what the Golden Crown Literary Society was, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. I just had to have you speak on that for a second, because I felt like it was so important to not only just you personally, but to the community, and I mean, just lesbian literature in general. I feel like it's such an important thing that it's acknowledged just as much as the male side of it. You know what I mean? And I thought that was such an important moment for your career. So I just wanted to hear from your perspective what that was like for you. So your first reaction when you were like, I was amazed.
Surprised. I mean, it's awesome when these things happen, because they give you this little, boost of confidence and reassurance. I mean, we all have like this imposter syndrome, if you where I think everyone is just like, am I supposed to be here? Am I as good as everyone else? Or so it's nice to have those. But this was also back in 2008 when, like, this book, if it had come out like last year, the year before, or like in the last 5 years even, it would have been so, the experience would have been so different,
Right.
Still in kind of the underground,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
it's kind of in one hand, it kind of stinks that that's the time period where I wrote it in, and that's when it happened, because I would have loved it to happen now. But at the same time, I learned so much about the publishing world in general, and to see society grow so much since then has been cool too. So
definitely. Well, yeah, and that's it's interesting that you noted that it was so far, so long ago, and so much has changed as far as visibility since then. But I feel like maybe just speaking on it will kind of revive it a little bit, maybe, and get some new followers on the book and the topic in general. Because I just thought that was so cool, and wanted to, like I said, stop and have you speak on that for a second, because once I realized kind of the stature of what that award meant, as far as you personally. I was just like, wow, that is so cool. You know what I mean? So just had to get your perspective on that. But kind of to switch gears to a little bit more current times, as you said, 2020 has been crazy, as we know, starting unfortunately with the death of Kobe Bryant. And you wrote a piece on what it means to be a girl dad. And I wrote this quote out word for word because it spoke to me so clearly and it related so much to of what I deal with as far as coming up in the modeling industry, the cannabis industry, and now as a woman in the sports industry. And I'm just going to stop for a second and read this quote word for word, and I'm sure you know which one I'm about to say. Posting a picture of your daughters on Facebook and putting a father of daughters in your Twitter bio is the bare minimum and doesn't mean anything if you harass women online, dog women's sports, make disparaging comments about the WNBA and other women's pro leagues, and of course, use the phrase, go back to the kitchen. You can't be a girl dad and tell your daughter she can be anything she wants in life except a head coach of a men's professional sports team. It doesn't work that way. What inspired that perspective of that article, and how was it received?
Well, I think it was received well. I think people got it, you know, and anybody who's been on Twitter, especially in the sports media world, knows exactly what I'm talking about. You get these guys who, so even when we post stuff about the NBA or WNBA news or anything, or something encouraging, inspiring, there's always somebody who jumps in with, nobody cares, goes back to the kitchen, you know, all this stuff. And then you click on I always click on their bio just because I want to, you know, see. I could tell you, like 90% of the time, there's, you know, my daughter's number one, and like stuff like that. And it's like, how can you can't exist in those two worlds.
Exactly.
You just can't. You can't put out this energy on Twitter and then go home and kiss your daughter goodnight, you know, and tuck her in. And, you know, it's just, it's a shame. It's a shame that people don't get that either, that they can't see the juxtaposition.
Right.
So,
well,
go ahead.
And part of the reason I brought it up is because obviously Shanae Gwumake recently announced that she was going to be sitting the season out. And that when I saw the thread from ESPN on Twitter, of course, I mean, so many people, I mean, I can almost like predict it. They use the Stephen A. Smith gif where he's like, I'm here to tell you, we don't care. And in response to stories like that all the time. And it's like, it's always the guys, like you said, who have, you know, they have 3 daughters, or they're using the hashtag girl dad, and they're passing themselves off as such a great dad. But here they are trashing the women that their daughter could potentially be.
That was the harsh irony of it when this whole girl dad came up, and then you'd have the same people honoring Kobe.
Yep.
Who was such a huge supporter of the WNBA and had the girl dad hashtag in their bio, and then they go and bang on these WNBA players. It takes a lot of energy and attention to hop to a thread and comment, because if you didn't care, you would just bypass. I'd run down things on Twitter that I don't care about at all, and you know what I do? I keep going. I keep it moving.
Keep going.
You know, if I'm not interested in, it doesn't permeate. But for some reason, you know, which obviously flies in the face of them saying they don't care, they feel the need to jump in to someone's thread and make a comment, you know. So the whole I don't care thing, you know, it's not that they don't care. It's that it's almost like they're annoyed by it. It bothers
Yeah.
Because when something bothers you, then you feel the need to comment.
Speak on it. Yes, exactly. Well, and it's interesting. It's so funny. I actually remember, now that we're speaking about this, when you wrote those same words on Twitter, and I actually remember retweeting it, because as somebody who I've grown up around the NBA, I've grown up around the NCAA basketball, men's and women's, and
my dad also, who's actually pretty close with Kobe back in the day when he was refereeing, was also a proponent of let's pay attention to the women's sports. Let's go to the women's games. Let's go watch, even locally here at the high school, let's go watch the girls play. Um, and as somebody who has been around these leagues and these sports all my life, and then when I speak on my knowledge, I speak on the teams that I like, I speak on the players that I follow, and I speak with knowledge, and I speak from, oh, I remember watching in 2017, or, these different examples that I use when I speak on what I know. And I always get dogged on by guys, always. And so it's like, coming from somebody who has experienced like both sides of it, so to speak, as somebody who I've always tried. I mean, I've got a WNBA jacket upstairs in my closet. You know what I mean? Like, I've always tried to honor the women's games as well. But I've also personally been dogged on by guys for my athletics and my athletic knowledge. And it's just so relatable to what you said. And it's like, as someone who's living proof of it, thank you for speaking on it. You know what I mean? Because it's important to call those people out, because it's so hypocritical. And if you truly are a girl dad, then you got to stop that shit. You know what I mean? Like,
that's what I mean. Like, the fact that they don't have enough awareness to see how they're thinking and what's coming out of the thoughts that they have and how they're tweeting, and then, interacting with their daughter at home. Like, like I said, it's the bare minimum. It's the bare minimum to girl dad in your Twitter bio.
Right. I agree. So, like I said, thanks for speaking on that, because it's something that resonated with me so much. But the meat and potatoes, so to speak, about why I wanted to have you on. You mentioned it at the beginning of the show, but you are writing a book about the Women's Football League with Brittany De La Creta. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, without obviously giving away the project, you did speak a little bit about your submission date getting pushed back to September, but talk about why this is an important project to you and why you felt this is an important story to tell.
Well, I think it's like anything in women's sports history. There's so much that happened that isn't out there,
Right.
And this was something that Brittany had come across while she was doing an article. And we had originally wanted to do a women in football book, but we were stuck on whether to do like a general women who have contributed to football throughout history, to the current landscape. And it was kind of a broad outlook. And then she came across this league from the 1970s, which is this women's professional football league, NWFL. And she said, this is it. This is the focus. I need to zero in on this, because so much there are women who were involved in football before then, bits and pieces here and there, and then it's league, and then it's everything that kind of comes from that. And you just have some really incredible people who played in this league.
Yeah.
One of the most gifted athletes in women's sports history, Linda Jefferson, was the most prominent player, a black woman in this league, and the first woman she was the first woman on the cover of a sports magazine, which was Billie Jean King's magazine called Women's Sports.
Yeah.
You have all these little intricate things that happened within the league, and that sort of came predated it and then came after it, and it's got a lot of like you mentioned earlier, it's got a lot of meat to it. There's a lot there, and so we just decided to do that. We wrote a book proposal. Our agent loved it. We actually had like 3 or 4 publishers bid on it to publish it, and we got to choose which one we felt most comfortable with.
Right.
With justice. And then last summer, it was announced that we got our book deal, and then we started the research and contacting all these players, which they're all in their 60s and 70s now. This has been a long time coming for some of them, and we started.
What's the reception like, again, without giving away too much of the book, because I'm sure you guys are going to include some of the process in the story of it, but what was the reception like from those women when they realized why they were being contacted by you?
Well, some of them, and this is general across the board, they're like, we didn't think we were doing anything special. We just wanted to play football. This gave us an opportunity to do something that we never could do before. Like, all the boys got to do it, and we wanted to do it too.
Yeah.
It's very simple. They just love to play.
Yeah.
But so many of them have come to realize kind of the importance of it,
Mm-hmm.
and how they're thankful that someone's actually taking the time to write about it or bring attention to it. Because nobody knows about it. My members, friends, people I've interacted with in this industry, I had no idea there was a professional women's football league.
Yeah, until I discovered that you were writing about it, I had no idea. And you know what strikes me as odd, like you said, these women didn't think that they were really doing anything special. It reminds me so much of obviously the movie that popularized it, A League of Their Own, but, you know, with the Women's Baseball League. And, you know, if people were that fascinated by that, then why wouldn't they be as equally fascinated about a women's football league too? You know what I mean? And so once I realized personally that it existed via you, it was like, what? Like, you know, like you said, how did more people not know about this? It's kind of one of those things that if people know and watch A League of Their Own, then they should know about this too.
Yeah. But it's true, because before A League of Their Own came out, how many of us knew? I was like 12 at the time, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know there were women who played professional baseball before that. It's just like bringing the attention, you know, to something that should be part of sports history knowledge.
Absolutely. Yeah, you essentially took the words right out of my mouth, not to, you know, use a phrase that's so commonly used, but I mean, there's so much, especially right now, of our history, not only as a nation, but just as a culture, that is like so not talked about. And I feel like right now is the time to kind of bring all these things to light, whether civil rights culture, whether sports culture, because truly the things do go hand in hand. You know what I mean? So the more that we're able to talk about minorities or women doing things that men or, you know, people that are in majority communities have been able to do, it's definitely an important conversation, because like you said, there's so much of that history that's so unknown that it would be so much more popular if people knew the history.
Yeah.
Not just the events themselves, but the ideas behind the events, the ideas behind the fact that, yeah, women can play football too, women can play baseball too, you know what I mean? So it's just interesting to me, you know, we were obviously talking earlier how the WNBA is so dogged upon, but then we stop and think how we've only once in our history as a nation ever had a women's baseball league or a women's football league. So we're so far behind the curve in women's sports. I mean, women's soccer, that's a whole nother conversation. You know what I mean? Like, it's so deep. So I just felt it was so important to have you on to talk about this book and the project so that people can kind of keep an eye on it. You mentioned kind of your goal date for submission. When can we expect to be able to purchase the book? When can we get our hands on it?
Yeah, so we're still scheduled to publish September 2021, which we wanted to coincide with the start of the NFL, the football league, the football season, with its release. So that's still our target at this point.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, please make sure to keep me informed, because it's something that I want to keep talking about and give you guys, you know, that extra. I have a small platform, but I have a platform. You know what I mean? So
my wife asked me, she's like, well, what podcast are you doing? And I explained, and I was like, listen, I'll talk to anybody, you know, anybody who wants to chat or is doing their own thing and starting their own platform. Like, I'm happy to help out, or, you know,
Thank you, by the way. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your time. And I also, before I forget, it's been coming to mind throughout, but I wanted to make sure I say Happy Pride Month, because obviously, as we know, this weekend was, you know, the big official Pride weekend. So I wanted to make sure I said that to you. So, you know, just thanks for sharing so much of who you are with the sports community and being so transparent about the things that are important to you, because I really feel like, not to put you on a pedestal, because I know you're not that type of person, but I just really feel like so many of the issues that you talk about and write about are really important. And so I just wanted to give you a minute, like I said, to kind of speak on a little bit of speckling of everything, because I feel like someone like you and people like you should be a little bit more paid attention to as far as normalizing and equalizing various voices. So just thanks for all you're doing in the sports community. I appreciate you and I enjoy following you. So
Well, that means a lot. I appreciate you saying that. It means a lot.
Of course. So thanks for your time today. And, maybe when fall 2021 comes around, we can have you and Brittany on the show and talk about the book, because
that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thanks. I had fun too.
Okay, how did you guys like that? Please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the secret segment with Lyndsey and all of our other podcast interview guests. Really think you guys are going to love that secret segment, so make sure to check it out. Real quick, couple of culture topics as we close out the episode. The number one thing that I did want to talk about was the conversation surrounding the Ivy League intent to move fall sports to spring. I think this is a good, smart move. I think that the Ivy League is going to be setting quite a precedent with this move, and I actually think that it is going to be way more positive for the athletes, not only in safety but also in opportunity. There's no real reason to get these athletes ready to play and prepared for what they expect to be a full season to just have to shut it down or make major modifications that could potentially affect the way that they perform. So again, as far as Ivy League schools go, those schools don't offer athletic scholarships. If you walk on, or if you play sports with an Ivy League school, you are walking on. So I really think that those athletes in particular deserve this type of move so that they can showcase their talents and get more future opportunities from an accurate showing, I guess is the best way to say that. But again, I think that this is minor in the grand sports world and things that are happening in sports. But again, I do agree with this, and I am excited to see what comes of this for the student athletes and how this perpetuates their opportunities at the next level rather than shutting them down and having things like COVID stand in the way of their talent showcase for the next level. So had to keep that one short and sweet, but I did have to touch on it just because it's one of those things that I feel can be so controversial, but it's such a simple issue that it really shouldn't be controversial. So anyways, moving on to our second and final culture topic. The NBA did approve social justice messages for their uniforms. I have heard some mumblings of some players who desire to use phrases that have not been placed on the NBA's approved list. I personally don't know what the process is for a player who wants to use a message that hasn't been pre-approved by the NBA. I don't know if there's a process to approving messages or if they're finding players that are using messages that aren't pre-approved. I don't know what that process is. Personally, I think it would be so silly for the NBA to fine players for using messages that aren't approved, but who knows? It's just such a weird thing right now, but I love this idea. Obviously, I think it kind of comes from the same line of thinking that people had when they were referring to the All-Star game using 8 and 2 or 24 and 2, I can't remember what they did, to tribute Kobe and Gianna. And I think that this falls in line with those nods, so to speak. I think that this is a positive move by the NBA and something that adds to the conversation that a lot of the players had the concern of, obviously Kyrie, of sitting out in order to make their statements known. And I really think that this is the best move the NBA could have chosen to go with in order to provide their players a necessary platform to continue to have a voice in social changes. And I think that's really important. I think that Adam Silver has been a phenomenal commissioner in that regard, and that's my personal opinion. So I thought it was really heartwarming and uplifting, some of the messages that they chose to pre-approve for the players to have on their jerseys, some of which included Black Lives Matter, say their names, vote, enough, and justice now were some of the pre-selected messages. There was about 8 to 10 other ones in addition to the ones that I just named, but they all pretty much have to do with, equality, justice, things like that, and making changes. So again, I think it's really positive that the NBA chose to do this kind of prerequisite approval for players, because I know that it was a concern for quite a bit of people who wanted to use their platform to be a part of the conversation for Black Lives Matter. And I'm kind of excited to see which players choose what, and if teams are gonna go with a theme, or if players are gonna buddy up and choose phrases that go together, or what happens. So I think it's another really creative aspect that the NBA has allowed the players to speak their minds and show their stance on things that are important to them. So as I'm always saying, this is more than basketball. It's more than a game. NBA players should not just shut up and dribble. They should definitely be a part of those conversations, because they have the platforms for the people who may not have any interest in social issues, but because somebody that they look up to is speaking on it, it gets their attention. So I really think that we need to kind of step back and give the players the respect that they deserve, to voice their opinion on things that are near and dear to their hearts, just like we as citizens get to as well. So that is it for the culture topics. I did kind of pre-warn you guys, these next couple of episodes are going to be a little bit shorter than normal, but that is just for the sake of preserving content and making sure the things that are the most important are being talked about, and that we are not having conversations until things happen, because we know how much sports changes and how quickly it changes, as we saw in March with COVID closures. So thanks, as always, for listening, watching, whatever you guys prefer to ingest the Sports Talk Mostly content with. I very much appreciate your support. So thanks again. Hope you guys enjoyed episode 11, and we will see you next time.
Got that West Coast wave, fuck around and catch a West Coast fade. We go up, post up. Both teams played hard, harder.